What is the I-539 form? To begin with, if a non-immigrant wants to extend their stay in the U.S., they can file Form I-539. Depending on what they are doing in the U.S., non-immigrants are viewed as temporary visitors who must adhere to certain visa requirements. You can either extend your stay or choose to change your non-immigrant status by submitting Form I-539, which is an application to extend/change non-immigrant status. This paper is available for free download here. Required documents for the I-539. A variety of papers are needed to fill out forms. The I-539 form should be filled out similarly. What records do you need to compile in this regard? The following list. You can add your spouse and unmarried children under the age of 21 in your application using the Form I-539. The only prerequisite is that you and they have the same status. The filing fee for the extension visa. I-94 paper form online. Copies of your passport's pages, including any blank ones. For the duration of your visit to the U.S., your passport must be valid. Evidence of financial assistance. A letter outlining in great detail your desire to extend your stay in the U.S., the reasons it is only temporary, and the impact your prolonged stay would have on your foreign job or residence. How to complete Form I-539. We'll also concentrate on the specific procedures you must take to complete Form I-539. The majority of questions are straightforward. In fact, they are direct and self-explanatory. We are specifically concentrating on the updated I-539 form that was released in 2019. When filling out the form, you should put in A, which stands for non-applicable, rather than leaving the slots blank if your response is "this doesn't apply to me" or "none." If your response is longer and the space allotted is insufficient, you may elaborate on it in Part 8 of the form. Part 1, Your personal information. The first section of the paper is brief, as is typical with most visa applications. In essence, you could only have an A number if you've been involved in a removal action in an immigration court. An A number is an 8 or 9-digit number that comes before the word A for alien. However, before requesting an extension, if you were part in such activities, you should unquestionably speak with a lawyer. You will already have a USCIS online account number if you have already submitted a petition or application. Remember that this is not the same as the A number from earlier. The likelihood is that you don't have a U.S. Social Security number unless your visa status permitted you to work. Your I-94 number may be found on the tiny white card you get at the border. Your status has expired if the date on your I-94 form has passed, in which case you are unable to submit a request for an extension using the Form I-539. You presumably used your passport to enter the U.S. You may enter "not applicable" in the travel document area in this situation. The reason for this is that you cannot include both a passport and a travel document. Include the previous passport number you had when you initially got the I-94 if, in the interim, your travel authorization or passport has expired. The expiration date is the same. You must enter your visa status in the current immigration status box. The information on your I-94 also includes the expiration date. If your I-94 indicates D/S, you should tick the box in question 16 if you hold the status of a J exchange visitor. This entails that you may stay in the U.S. till your academic program is over. Part 2, Type of Application. You can use this form for purposes other than just extending your stay in the U.S. However, given that this is the case in your circumstance, you should select the first option and leave the other two unchecked. If you want to include your spouse or children in the application, check box 5A. You will also need to complete the I-539 Supplement A in this situation, where you will provide their personal information and other facts. Part 3, Information Processing. You must include the date on which you want to depart the U.S. in the third section. If you include any family dependents, you should select the Yes box for question 3 on the questions 2 through 3B. On the other side, you should choose Yes under Yes, filed earlier and pending with the USCIS if you submitted the I-539 after your spouse, child, or parent and the USCIS hasn't given them an official response for their application. Part 4, Supplemental Data. The first questions concern your passport. You will need to provide information such as the nation, number, and expiration date. Even if it is already beyond its expiration date, you still need to do this. However, you can renew it at a consulate of your home country located in the U.S. if the expiration date falls within the duration of the extension. Prior to leaving the U.S., it must be valid for at least 6 months. Foreign nationals can visit the U.S. and potentially settle here permanently with an immigrant visa. It will be clear that you want to stay in the U.S. if you mention in your application that you have sought for an immigrant visa. On the basis that you don't intend to return to your native country, your extension application may be denied as a result. Additionally, the USCIS is likely to reject your application if you mention that you have submitted an immigration petition. This is so since applying for permanent residency in the U.S. is one of the initial stages. Your eligibility for entry into the U.S. will be determined by your answers to the questions from 6 to 15. For instance, if your response to question 6 is positive and you have been detained for a crime with which you have not yet been charged, you should only type the word yes. A copy of the police report with the specifics of what transpired could also be sent. However, if the incident is more serious, you should speak with a lawyer first before taking any more action. You should consult the rules that apply in your situation about visa infractions. For instance, it would be considered a breach if you worked while you were a student when you initially arrived in the U.S. How much does it cost to file an I-539? As previously stated, the updated I-539 necessitates payment of an $85 biometric cost. You will furthermore need to pay $370. In order to do it, you must spend a total of $455. To get the exact cost, you can consult this site. Depending on what works best for you, you can choose to pay with a cashier's check, personal check, or money order. Keep in mind that by agreeing to make the payment, you authorize the U.S. government to handle your money. You could think about paying using a credit card if you're submitting the paperwork at a USCIS Lockbox location. You must first make your check payable to the U.S. Department of Homeland Security if you're paying by check. Additionally, keep in mind that these payments are non-refundable. Regardless of whether your request for an extension is granted or denied, once you have made the payment, you cannot get your money back. In addition, there is no method to get your money back even if you decide to withdraw your request. Submitting Form I-539. What is the process for submitting the form once it has been completed? The only way to submit a form for the majority of applications is by sending it to the appropriate address. In this regard, you might look at the USCIS filing addresses page. In this situation, you must ensure that each item has a copy, which includes a copy of the money order or check.